A mother who lost both her sons to heroin addiction is calling for changes in drugs laws, which she says are as much to blame for her sons' deaths as the drugs themselves.
Rose Humphries was a guest speaker at a conference in Birmingham today, hosted by the Police and Crime Commissioner, who has branded current drugs policy a failure. Ahead of the conference, she spoke to Callum, Watkinson.
Father, partner, brother.
In this
uncle,
short film,
son,
Jake Coe's
grandson,
bereaved partner calls for the decriminalisation and government regulation of the illegal drugs that killed her baby's father.
The world is not a better place for the loss of Jake Coe. If there's a chance my son...
Jake's death from a heroin overdose came 11 years after that of his younger brother Roland. For their mother, one loss laid a grim foundation for the next.
When I lost Jake, I had already learned how to cope. I had 11 years of learning how to cope with losing a son. And so, yeah, so I just coped.
And that was after coping for years with not one but two addicted children.
I lived with constant anxiety, as though I had got some kind of turmoil inside me all the time. And it was a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. I did actually come to the end of my tether once with Jake, and I told him that he just had to go. And we had to put him out through the door with his belongings in bags. As he was going down the drive, as we were forcing him to go down the drive, he was shouting at me that I didn't love him and things like this. And it was the most awful thing I've ever done. I couldn't bear it.
But you felt like you'd tried everything else at that
Yeah.
point?
Rose spoke at a conference in Birmingham today about the need for drug law reform. Her organisation, Anyone's Child, campaigns against the criminalisation of addicts, arguing their problem is medical and the solution is government regulation of their drug supply.
I don't think my boys would have ever got into drugs to the extent that they did if they hadn't been illegal. The fact that they are illegal makes them far too widely available to anybody of any age. Drug dealers don't care who they're selling to.
There will always be those who balk at the prospect of what they see as softer drug laws. But the clear message from this family, torn to shreds by drug addiction: prohibition does not work. It makes things worse.
Well, Callum joins us in the studio now. Callum, it's a really sad story. People watching this tonight might understand, why Rose has the feelings that she has. How did her comments today go down at the convention?
Well, she got a very sympathetic hearing, as you would imagine, for someone who's been through what she has. Look, she's not advocating a complete free-for-all where you can buy crack and heroin in any corner store. What she's saying is that in a world when people are going to take drugs, we, society, should do more to make sure they can do so safely. And in her view, that includes the government regulating a safe supply of the drugs that addicts take. Now, the Police and Crime Commissioner, David Jameson, has done his own research on this subject, and he's come up with some pretty arresting figures. Half of all crime, like burglary and shoplifting in the West Midlands, is committed by drug addicts. He says that drugs cost the West Midlands £1.4 billion a year. And he says that someone dies every 3 days in this region from drug addiction. And while he stopped short of completely endorsing Rose's proposals when I spoke to him earlier, it was pretty clear that he does think something needs to change.
The question that Rose has asked about decriminalisation of drugs, let's discuss that. Let's have a sensible, grown-up, mature conversation about it, and let's see if there are some solutions that can come about to stop something like the terrible and tragic death of her two sons.
So, Callum, given these statistics and the fact that the conversation is now happening, is there a serious possibility of Britain perhaps moving towards more liberal drug laws?
Well, someone else I spoke to at the conference today was Baroness Malcha. She chairs an all-party parliamentary group on drugs reform. She's a passionate advocate of decriminalisation, and I asked her that question you've just asked me. Here's what she told me.
The UN last year at their General Assembly special session announced that evidence-based public health policy is here to stay. That's a global statement. That is a challenge to the UK and every other member state to consider the evidence of drug policy. Are their policies evidence-based? Are they public health centred? In the UK, no, they are not.
And like I said, a passionate advocate of legalisation, and she believes that the evidence base does support her position. And she thinks now that the UN has said what it has said about evidence needing to be at the heart of public health, she believes that that could give ministers in Westminster the political cover to make some real changes. But the government's pretty distracted at the moment, as we all know. It's not likely they're going to be tinkering with their drugs policy anytime soon. What might be interesting is to see whether David Jameson's proposals, which he's going to publish in February based on this research, make it into the manifesto of his own party, the Labour Party, at the next election.
OK, well, we'll wait and see. Callum, thank you very much.